So Tom Holland is set to be the new Marvel Cinematic Universe Spider-Man. Cool, I'm down for that, and I haven't seen John Watts' cop car yet, but it looks good, so here's hoping he pulls through as director. I'm not exactly sure that I'm excited for this film right now, given the screenwriters of a bunch of safe easy comedies are helming the script, and we've heard next to nothing outside of what I've already mentioned, but we won't start to get a real picture of just how that might all pay off in the long run until a trailer comes along one day, so yeah, who knows. As of right now, we're currently sitting comfortably in the time that I like to call the villain speculation period, where everyone's expressing a nice big interest in and about just who Marvel and Sony might go with as the main antagonist for the next Spider-Man outing. Who could possibly rival the web-slinger in both strength and personal stake? Will it be Mysterio? Could it be Scorpion? Shocker? Morbius? You know, I was just naming names at first, but man, Morbius would be f***ing awesome. But when looking at the wide library of villains available, I'm not so sure the concern this time round should be as much on just which antagonist the film should focus on, as much as how the writers should actually handle that character. See, part of the problem with adapting Spider-Man's gallery of enemies into the movies is that a film narrative tends to demand something a little more emotionally satisfying than what the original characters lend themselves to. And if Spider-Man's fighting someone for an hour and a half, you'd naturally probably want there to be some legitimate drama between the hero and villain incorporated into the mix, right? Except that's not really what Spider-Man's foes are all about. Besides perhaps one or two more personally connected figures, or the odd good-natured scientist whose experiment goes horribly wrong, most of Spider-Man's enemies are, honestly, just a bunch of B-list bank robbers. Average low-life scumbags that just happen to find themselves bestowed with powers, be it intentionally or accidentally, that they realise they can abuse to endeavour in criminal pursuits and or finally defeat that damn web-slinger that keeps getting in their way. And that's pretty noticeable in most of the movies. Because people like Shocker and Rhino are not that huge a deal and weren't written to be as such, there's been a push apparent from the filmmakers more recently to write in some kind of extra detail to try and make the proceedings far more involving. The only problem is, that detail that's been introduced as of late has been horribly contrived or lazy. The reason being, of course, is that Spider-Man's foes being the main crux of the material was never the intention to begin with. The drama has never been in defeating the enemies themselves or Spider-Man's relationship with them, it's how those proceedings will affect Peter Parker's personal life. This isn't Batman and the Joker rivaling order and chaos, it's a smart-ass kid in a Halloween costume, desperately trying to punch a guy with a fishbowl for a head that keeps disappearing so he can end this brawl and make it on time to his date with Gwen Stacy. And in one sentence, that's basically what Spider-Man's all about. Spider-Man 2 gets it right on the money. The threat is not, can Spider-Man stop these robbers, it's, can Spider-Man stop these robbers in time for Peter Parker to make it to Mary Jane's play? They made the turning a one-note villain into a more involving character shtick work with Dr. Octopus, because not only was the character himself made more interesting than his original comics version, by using a new origin to make him more engaging and sympathetic, but they also kept the relationship between him and the web-slinger pretty standard in the fact that they barely shared one at all. He robs a bank, Spider-Man makes that difficult for him. He wants the tritium from Harry, wouldn't you know it, he's gotta go beat up Spider-Man for that to happen. As far as Doc Ock is concerned, he's just an annoying arsehole that he keeps having to deal with to reach his goals. He doesn't hate Spider-Man, or blame him for his accident, or want revenge, or suddenly learn that it's Peter Parker and feels betrayed. He just keeps having to deal with the guy because he keeps getting in his way. Let's be clear here, when people say they love Spider-Man 2 because of Doc Ock, they're missing a huge detail. To be invested in the material at all, you had to have given a damn about Peter Parker in the first place. And in the true spirit of Spider-Man's appeal, that entire film is all about how his life is negatively affected by his outings as the Wallcrawler. The villain worked because Octavius was engaging enough on his own that they didn't need to contrive nonsense for the two characters to fight. Which also meant that when they did, it was a pretty light-hearted affair, one we could have fun watching. And that's a pretty funny fact when you consider that so many installments after the fact have attempted to recreate the same kind of drama of that movie in particular by introducing some kind of misunderstanding that causes rivalry between the two players, when the investment actually had nothing to do with any personal pettiness shoehorned in there between Ock and Spider-Man in the first place. Sandman in Spider-Man 3 didn't work for a very complicated reason, but a topical one nonetheless. Not only was it a bit of a tacked-on sob story, clearly trying to recreate that emotional engagement in a sound way, why wouldn't we naturally feel sorry for a guy if he has a sick dying daughter that needs looking after, but in order to stir up some ham-fisted drama in time for the black suit to make its way into Peter's life and encourage some vengeance, they also decided to introduce an incredibly stupid retcon involving Flint Marko actually being revealed to be Uncle Ben's real killer. The result of which wound us up with a character that was utterly inconsistent. At one point Sandman was a guilt-filled but good-natured guy that had stumbled in life. At one point he was the standard thief that we recognised from material elsewhere. Seriously, that scene when him and Spider-Man meet is straight out of a comic book page and it's awesome. At times he was stealing money to pay for his daughter's healthcare, and then just in time for the climactic battle, he drops everything to go and team up with Venom and kill the Webhead. Then to top it all off, the movie once again turns around to say, no, Flint Marko's innocent, Uncle Ben's death was an accident, as if it's meant to distract us from how we saw him literally try to murder Spider-Man moments earlier. Another example? For some reason it was too much to simply have Electro be a superpowered thief that Spider-Man keeps pissing off. Nope, now they had to contrive some absolute baloney about Max Dillon idolizing Spider-Man and then getting jealous when he unintentionally steers the spotlight away from him, naturally causing him to want to kill the guy. Seriously, who on earth thought that up and went, yeah, now people will care? You see, in Hollywood trying so hard to recapture what they had with Doc Ock, whilst clearly not getting why it worked, what they've done is simply overthink characters that don't need such special attention. And it's unintentionally steered the material, which is actually meant to be an exciting, light-hearted series about a guy whose life keeps getting cocked up by his superhero adventures, into something that it just shouldn't be. Illogical, angsty, dark, and moody contrivances for superpowered bad guys to pursue killing the hero for really emotional reasons and giving Spider-Man an excuse to cry at the end of every installment. So all of this does beg the question as to what I think they should do this time round. I like the idea of seeing Kraven because he's just a pretty cool villain, and you could basically call him Spider-Man's Bane for one notable story in which he essentially defeats him, but that's more of a darker, high-stakes type of deal that I'd argue belongs more in a sequel. And remember, this is the new Spider-Man, a series that will need to set itself apart from all the others. Some of you might be thinking Mysterio, and while that would actually be a good idea since he's just a thief that happens to be an annoying illusionist, constantly disappearing and just being an inconvenience for Spider-Man, I'd in fact go one step further. Take not one, not two, not three, but a whole bunch of B and C list mildly threatening villains and put them all together to make the Sinister Six. Think about it, a team of low-life scumbags who want to do nothing other than team up and work together to kill Spider-Man? That'd be great. No phony motivations, you excuse some elaborate varied fight sequences, and you establish this huge Spider-Man world bursting with characters that the filmmakers have on hand in the case of future sequels. And before you all freak out over the too many villains theory because the movie wouldn't have enough time to set them all up, like I said before, with folks like Rhino, Shocker, and Electro, they are not designed to be turned into super engaging characters that we need a special amount of time to get properly invested in. Hell, Spectacular Spider-Man managed to do this storyline during the Black Symbiote arc. Because in the case of Sinister Six, there are stakes in Spidey not being able to defeat them all, of course there are, but the ultimate threat is not, will Spider-Man win this battle, it's, will Spider-Man be able to end this now so that Peter Parker can get home before Aunt May dies from a heart attack over worrying about her nephew still not being home yet at 2 in the morning? All you'd need to do is introduce them one by one, and since this is a reboot seeking to take place after Spider-Man's origin, you can just say they've been around for a while and he's pissed them all off. Hell, why not start the movie by having him stop all their criminal activities one by one? If there's one thing I feel very strongly in, it's how important first impressions can be when it comes to setting up a franchise. Why not go in a refreshing direction and start off this franchise series in just having a bit of fun? Not every villain has to turn into the be-all end-all of Peter Parker's world. Spider-Man's activities are almost a gimmick in that regard. It's fun to see him fight bad guys because who doesn't love watching a wise guy talking smack to a dude in a big silly rhino suit, but we show up at all because we care about whether or not Peter Parker, the average, relatable, enduring teenage student, is going to pull through in the end in making ends meet, looking after those he cares about, and just basically surviving everyday life. That's where the real drama comes from, and it's damn strange to see some of the newer installments lack that essential touch. This is the one property that allows itself to feature average enemies. Exploit that license. I want to see Vulture and Shocker fighting Spider-Man intercut with shots of Peter Parker's essay hand-in deadline drawing closer and closer. You know, like, towards the start of the film, because that would be a pretty underwhelming finale. Plus, Sony would finally get to say that they made that Sinister Six film after so many years of desperately trying to drum one up. So, there you have it. I'm putting it out there right now that they should totally go Sinister Six for the first Marvel Spider-Man movie. Your move, studios. Cheers for watching, guys, and as always, if you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel.